of the frightening things about being close to the highway is that we hear sirens. It's always troubling when we hear those during the day, but it's especially troubling when we hear those in the morning, as we know children are coming to school, and in the afternoon, as we know children are leaving. We heard the sirens, and I always am concerned that something has happened to one of our children.
I can still remember the exact location in the school that I was standing in when Mr. Smith and I received the phone call that one of our students had been in an accident. I can remember just that gut-wrenching feeling of, oh no, not one of our students.
Arriving on scene, we pull up to find Zach's vehicle on the side of the road around a tree. At that point, most of us in our mind were thinking, this is not going to be good. When we pulled up on scene, it was just jaw-dropping. You see this white car who had ran off the side of the road, and I can't speak for everybody else on scene, but I know that my reaction was, wow, we have to get this kid out now and as fast as possible to give him the best fighting chance.
I can't recall who first told me that one of our students had been in a wreck, but I do know that it was shortly afterwards that I heard from the resource officer that it was a terrible wreck. And quite honestly, that based on the scene, based on the paramedics at the scene, that it was pretty bleak for Zach.
So we get into the car and we started assessing the situation along with the paramedic and other firefighters on scene. We were there working hard just to get Zach out of the car mainly, and to get him to Greenville Hospital where they could take over patient care.
We also decided to make the trip to Greenville once we knew he had been airlifted to Greenville to check on the family and to be there in case we were needed.
I can remember Mr. Smith and I leaving immediately and going to the hospital and just praying with the family, and just the emotion of worrying about whether he was going to make it through the night at that point.
So it was late in the afternoon of January the 27th. So we're getting the buzz of the accident and the things that will take place before he comes to us, go into the OR to get him stabilized. You know, just listening to all the buzz going on and different physicians coming up, telling us things, it's just like, man, this is bad. This just really does not sound like a good outcome for this family. My first thoughts are Karen. I think it's because I'm a mom, and so I have a mom's heart, and before I met her, I prayed for her strength to deal with this with her son. So Zach gets to us. It was right at shift change. Things were crazy in that room. He had a lot of injuries. You know, in the room with him that night, I was just thinking, man, they're going to have to tell him goodbye. They're going to lose their son tonight. It just had I could not fathom how he could make it through the night.
I remember going in to the children's emergency room and Zach's mom being in the waiting room, and just the look on her face, and I knew, being a parent, that things were not good. And I remember just this feeling of that could be my child laying there. And the emotion of that when I went home that night was just exhausting. But one thing that stands out about that is the community support. They had their church there, and that was really important to them. And then school, our school resource officer, the chief of police, we were all there. And also on the other side of things, I thought, wow, how nice to have this many people in one room praying for your child. So the community outreach was just amazing.
So the day of the accident, I was actually on a mission, and my girlfriend actually sent me a message on Facebook and said, Zach's been in a car accident. And I was like, in my head, I didn't really think it was that big of a deal. And I was like, it's all right, I have a mission to do, I gotta go. And she texted me back again. She was like, no, you need to listen, your little brother's been in a serious car accident. And she gave me one of the firefighters' numbers, and she said, you need to call him right now. During that call, my girlfriend actually sent me pictures of the accident. And it kind of set in then a little bit about what was going down, and I kind of pushed it to the side, and I was like, no, it can't be that bad, he's fine. And even though I know he's a tough guy, those pictures really put it in my head that something was really wrong. So I talked to the guy who was working with the fire department. He said, I'm not allowed to tell you these things, but I'm not really sure how the Army works, but if I was you and if you can, I would come home, because I'm not really sure how long he'll last. I finally got to talk to my mom, and she was in tears, and I was trying to stay strong for her, and I said, Mama, I think I'm gonna go ahead and come home. When I actually got to leave and get on the flight, it's about a 25-hour flight. I was trying to prepare myself for what could be coming or what could happen. And then when I walked in the hospital room, I fell on my knees. My mom had to help me up, and my little brother was just laying there, and he couldn't say anything, and he couldn't look at me. He had no idea that his big brother was home. For the first time in my entire life, I felt really stupid. Because all those times that we had argued, and all those times that I'd hit him, and we'd fight, and we'd fuss, and we'd argue for no reason, they were pointless. I just wanted my baby brother to wake back up. Just seeing his eyes swollen up, and he was completely motionless. He was barely breathing. He was swollen. He had cuts and scrapes all over him. Scariest feeling to feel that hopeless.
So I come back that morning, and he's there. He's stable. He still has a lot of hurdles to jump over, but he made it. He made it through the night. He was quite the fighter from the very beginning. Every day that I worked, I took care of him. There may have been 1 or 2 days in there that just because of the way assignments worked, I didn't get him back. But there were a lot of battles. You get through the first 24 hours, which is a crucial point in just making it. But then you still have, like day 3 and 4 is kind of the peak of when your injuries come to a head, when your brain basically, it can swell, and you cannot make it from, brain death from the pressure in your head getting too high. So we fought that battle with Zach. It was a fine line in doing the things that we needed to do to take care of him, because even though he was not awake, we would agitate him enough to make that pressure in his brain go up. So that was a battle for, probably at least the first week, maybe even longer. We go to school to learn medicine. Our physicians go to school to learn medicine, but when you take care of patients like Zach, you're just reminded that it's not us. It has nothing to do with us. We accept the call to go into medicine, to be a nurse or to be a physician, but we're just giving God permission to use our hands. And that's all that we did. And it's no doubt to me that this was a miracle with Zach. Even things, days after his accident, and we're watching the pressures in his brain creep up, and it made me nervous. Maybe there was an injury that had taken place just from his pressures going up that we couldn't control, but it didn't. How do you explain that? How do you explain seeing the car the way it was around the tree and him even making it to the ER? You can't. Medicine and people cannot explain that.
So after a couple nights and stuff, a few days, Zach finally started showing some motion in his fingertips and some things like that. Every time I did get to contact back home and stuff like that, I was hearing things like, he's walking further today, his one eye's opening again, he's finally getting, both eyes can move a little bit, stuff like that. They unwired his jaw, and they have a trachea, and he's trying to talk, and so on and so forth. Until right before I left and came back stateside permanently, he was able to talk really good. They took his trachea out. Well, as Zach started recovering, it really started to sink into these guys that he's not just recovering, he's a miracle. This kid went from dying to in a bed for weeks and a couple months to walking, to being able to talk again, to eating normally, to being able to hold a job, to being able to go back to school and make all A's and a few B's.
But God stepped in, and he put his hand right in the middle of a bad situation, and he turned Zach's misfortune into a testimony that he could share with hundreds and thousands of people over Facebook and in real life. I truly do believe that this was an act of God, and that there's no way that Zach could be here today if it wasn't for him. For me, every time I see Zach walking around, talking, laughing, it makes me smile, honestly, to know that there is good being done out
When
here.
I think back from the day that we went to the hospital, or the evening that we went to the hospital, to where Zach is now, it is pure amazement. I mean, you're in the waiting room and you're thinking, this child stands maybe a 15% chance of making it through tonight. And then I walk into our commons area at school, and there sits Zach. And, he's thriving and he's doing well, and his friends, are all surrounding him, supporting him. He's back at school, going to his classes, earning a high school diploma, and one day he's going to be able to work in electronics. And my main feeling would be one of amazement, and just knowing the power of prayer, and knowing that we serve a God that still does miracles, because Zach is a miracle.
We are so thankful that he is with us. I see Zach now, it's a feeling of thankfulness and relief. Thankful that he is back with us, and relieved that he can continue his progress and be a viable member of society.